Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of PodX Nairobi. My name is Dana Seda and I work for Semabox. If you don't know about Semabox, we are the first purpose-built podcasting studio. We are plug and play. We're located at the Baraza Media Lab, and our job is to supercharge African storytelling. Part of the PodX Nairobi series that we are doing is to try and find some situations and opportunities to share skills and knowledge with other creators in the sector. And so we are really honored today to host Bwana Edward Sigei, who is the Executive Director of the Kenya Copyright Board. I just want to do what we are calling the Copyright Masterclass. So, Bwana Sigei, why don't you introduce yourself?
I think you finished. I appreciate your invitation, and it's a pleasure for me to be here finally. I've been trying to visit for a while.
No, I'm glad you made it.
It's a pleasure for me to be here. It's a nice place, and I've got birika of tea. I'm happy.
I'm glad. Yeah. So maybe we can just jump straight into it, because I know that there's pressures on time. Mm-hmm. Why don't we start from the very basics? A Kenya Copyright Board, what would you say in a I know you do a lot of work, but what's the summary of the work that you do and maybe the mandate legally that you have?
Yes, I think this opportunity, I would like to take this opportunity to distinguish KECOBO from other organizations working in the sector. When you hear Kenya Copyright Board or KECOBO, it is a government agency. Unlike others whom you know, we were the collective management organizations, which are private companies limited. So KECOBO is established under the Copyright Act of 2001. It is a fairly new organization. It's about 12 years old or 13 years old or so. And our role is set out under the Copyright Act. The main role of KECOBO is enforcement. If you have an issue with enforcement, you visit KECOBO, and we should be able to get you some inspectors to go around and round up a few people. We used to do prosecution under the donated powers of the DPP. Then, so at some point, they went back. The donor took back the rights. We also have now a record of copyright works, which we are in the process of establishing. KECOBO also advises government on issues of the law. The changes you see happening in the law, it is really our mandate that we do that. There are also international treaties and conventions that Kenya has signed, which we work towards having domesticated and ratified. So we are advisors of government. In many instances, we do attend meetings on copyright matters. And we report the results, and we represent and speak on behalf of the country. Yes.
And so by extension, therefore, you are also protecting creatives and rights holders.
Of course, I think that is something that I forgot, but it's very key. That is, we are mandated to raise awareness about copyright issues to the public and to the creators. Yeah, to the public because they consume and sometimes they misuse and abuse what they ought to have paid for, or they could have got free. So we need to establish the boundaries. For the creators is really that they need to understand the rules of the game. You can't play if you don't know the rules. It's like getting into a football pitch and you want to play professionally, and you know nothing from Adam. So it's very, very key. So our role is really with regard to those two groups, different and distinct in that way. Yeah.
I mean, I want to kind of focus on the section you mentioned there, which is about the changes that have been happening in the copyright law. Mm-hmm. So we know that there have been some big changes in the last 5 or 6 years. Do you want to just highlight maybe the ones that you think are the most consequential?
Yes, a few years ago we did some legislation in which at that time we were calling the Copyright Amendment Bill of 2017. This was the biggest change in the legislative front since 2001. So the legislation proposed a number of interventions. The first one is the Internet Service Provider liability provisions were brought in. And this is something that was a subject of a fight recently.
You remember?
Yes, in Parliament, and they wanted to take it back, emasculate it. So that was a very, very key win for us. Second one, we did extensive changes on the collective management organization liability or management section. So this is still a work in progress, and it is of course you've been hearing that there could be other changes as well soon, as within the month. But we keep on trying. We didn't succeed with those changes. We also incorporated what we call the Marrakesh Treaty. There's a treaty that is fairly new and popular, which created access to reading material for people with visual impairment, the blind, and people with other reading disabilities. So in this case, we managed to finally domesticate it, and that was a win. Other changes in the law at that time was incorporation of what we call the resale right. A number of people in the visual arts sector, like the painters and the sculptors and others, have their works resold severally. So we created the right for them to gain benefit when the works are resold from the original people, like those who bought it first in auction and others. So we did a lot of those changes, and I think the industry was happy with those. A few are very upset, and hence the last month when we had to really appear in the
so 2 months ago,
to defend some of this. Yeah,
I mean it's an important, especially the first change you've mentioned, because when an ISP basically aids a person to use copyrighted material without permission, it's a big challenge, obviously, one of the latest challenges to copyright the world over. How has the process been moving such changes? Because we know there's some awareness gaps already.
I think surprisingly it went well. And I think that is one thing that we should give to the current administration, because they showed the political will, and when we made the proposals, they were prioritized. I remember sitting in a boardroom somewhere, and where we were presenting legislative proposals to a cabinet subcommittee. And we had other bills in the area of culture that were presented and approved at the same meeting. They have not been published.
Oh.
Yes, and so when I say we have to give credit, it's true. Ours was published, it was read in the last parliament, it was taken up in this outgoing parliament, and it was given the priority it deserves. So really, it was a surprise, but I think I knew that there was a political will to improve the legislative framework, at least, in the sector. And I think it was being keenly followed by the highest officers. Yeah.